Oh, I'm giving the camera a screw face and I'm like actually on. Hi everyone. We are here for the after party. And yeah, let's just start, Chloe. So what did you think? First of all, before I ask you what did you think, thank you very much for introducing me to Stone and Steel, and thank you for introducing me to Ebony J. Dunbar. It was on the Solar Powered page when I saw the cover with like the Afro puff frohawk and the weapon, and I was just like, that is a gorgeous cover. And you actually introduced all of us to that book, and that's literally why I bought it. So thank you for being amazing at curating all of our like Black SFF recommendation content. That's amazing. So you've read Stone and Steel, and you're familiar with the FIA community. So say more.
Oh, thanks for the shout out. In terms of what I thought, I hadn't known about I'd heard the origin story about the George R. R. Martin book and the 5th season, but that discussion just really made some stuff come together, because like when she's talking about the power dynamics and stuff, that's like exactly like the prologue from the 5th season, where we're like in the center, the capital of the city, and then the narrator's like, they don't matter, we're never going to see these people again, like there's an emperor and there might be some stuff going on with him, but who cares.
Yeah.
And then we spend all the time with like the origins of this empire is trying to repress. So that wasn't a connection I made until this interview. So that was really cool.
I think there's something rubbing against your microphone. Yeah. It's so okay.
Is it better now?
So far, yeah. Okay, go on. Can't hear you. We'll find a way.
Okay.
You're fine. And so for those in the chat, oh my gosh, I put the wrong invite list in the
in the chat.
I put the Simon and Schuster link for New Sons. That's not going to get you into StreamYard.
Yeah, no.
That's not going to work today. Okay. So one of the questions that I wanted to talk about in the 13 minutes we have left is, what does it mean when, how do you feel, and have you encountered circumstances where writers have said, look, if I want to write a story about people like me being safe and being in community and being happy and loved and cared for, it's going to have to be fiction. It's going to have to be science fiction or speculative or fantasy. Have you come across that, and how do you feel about that? And also, welcome, Samri.
Hey, Samri.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So yeah, go ahead, Chloe.
I don't know that I've heard that a lot. Like I could imagine disabled writers maybe taking that up in interesting ways, because it makes me think of that short story from Octavia's Brood about that. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there was one about like an accessible future and what that would look like.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I've heard as many authors say it like as clearly and like as to the point as Ebony said it.
Mm-hmm.
I think my gut reaction is to be like, what? No. But then also like I think as I'm like doing different things and like also getting older, I realize that like some things are like new territory and I really don't know if that makes sense. I think there's a lot of media stuff and a lot of like resource stuff for like younger people, and I don't realize like as I'm getting older that like I don't know, I'm kind of getting older with all the other like queer people I know.
Right.
Like, everyone's like my age or younger, so I just don't know what some of these things look like.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see what gets normalized over time, because certainly there's a lot of stuff around just like living that's normal now that wasn't normal when I was your age, Chloe. Samri, welcome. It's your first time joining in an after party, but you have been very active in the chats and in the comments. So thank you so much. What leapt out for you from the interview with Ebony?
When I was going to college, there was an instructor who was like, suggesting that I go into MFA in creative writing. So I was like, but I didn't. So I was like, I've been always like wondering, oh, what if I had gone into that? But then she was like, yeah, I wouldn't have done it and spent all that money. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. So now I'm not like so, I guess, regretful. Well, it's not completely regret, but it's like, what if? But yeah, if we could get education for free, I would have done it.
Mm. And are you a writer at this point? Are you writing things, or are you more of a reader, or just finding your way?
I'm an artist. I think of myself as an artist, and I like my mom always says I should be an author. But it's just moms, right? They're always like thinking of you as like the best in everything. But yeah, I just write whenever I feel super inspired. Like I don't think I can be an author who like people expect to like write great works all the time. That would be a lot of pressure on me. So
Yeah, it is a lot of pressure. I just want to let you know that recently I wrote an extremely mediocre short story, and I'm extremely proud of myself. And so I just feel like it's important to just do it. And moms are
yeah.
sometimes smarter and more intuitive than we think. So just do it. And there are a lot of, one of the things I really enjoyed about this particular interview was that Eboni is so connected to writing community. So it sort of like inspired me to put so much in the chat about like, just like, the different workshops and that, that are available. And there's so much community for writing. So please, if you are interested, feel free to join those of us who are just finding our way in that world. I want to put up something that LP said earlier. So also this idea in Regency, so Game of Thrones, that the poor and working class people don't matter, gets addressed in Stone and Steel. Now, Samri, have you read Stone and Steel?
No.
Okay. I know you have Chloe, and then A and NT No Video says that's so interesting. Game of Thrones used to feel very bleak, but also realistic in how the lower classes were just randomly subjected to violence or being dismissed just based on where you live and who ruled. One of the things that I really like, we're not going to talk about GOT, but we are going to talk about Stone and Steel. And one of the things that I loved about Stone and Steel was that unlike stories where the underclass is voiceless, in this particular story, there's a very, very rich narrative around people who do not have immediate access to wealth and resources. The community is like organized, principled, resourced, and very like hella queer and really committed to each other. And I loved that. Far too often in like that kind of fantasy where we have like, even when I think of like all those like all those shows, like I'm thinking about like Merlin and Xena and all of those kinds of worlds, we get underclass, but they're just like these one-dimensional flat characters with no backstories except for the fact that they are poor, and that's it. And here we just get so much, and I found that really really gratifying. And it got me a little like nostalgic for like me sort of like growing up in proximity to communities that were under-resourced but extremely wealthy in terms of like community and family and wily, street smarts, innovation, and survival skills, like all sorts of things like that, far beyond those who had access to wealth. Chloe, what did you think about that in the book?
I thought that was really interesting. I really liked, who was it, Mercy is one of the characters there. She's just very ruthless, very determined. And I thought that was interesting. I thought that like made, I don't know, it felt almost like contemporary. I felt like when they went to the Ville, like there's something about it that felt very like present day. Didn't feel like such a far off world in some ways.
Yeah. So I'm wondering about this question about, like, just going back to it, because I didn't have an opportunity to ask you, Samri. You hadn't joined us yet, but what do you think about the idea of, certain communities feeling like they're only going to get a world, the only place they'll be able to get a world in which people like them are safe and happy and cared for is fantasy or speculative fiction? What do you think about that idea?
That's interesting. It's kind of like, how I guess oppressed groups are super religious because all they can aspire to or hope for is heaven. And that only happens after they die, right? They can't think of a world where like they're flesh and bone and on earth where it's peaceful and safe. So I don't know. So I was actually writing about how I watched Lovecraft Country and the I Am episode with like that black woman with the big afro.
It's the one in space.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
that
that was
was super cool because I was like, that's what I imagine a different, like, peaceful dimension to be. Like, I mean, I'm a Star Trek fan, but the Star Trek universe is filled with like the Borg and like all these like scary aliens and stuff. But like for me, a peaceful space would be like a place like the I Am kind of universe where you can just like explore different planets and there's no poisonous things or whatever, you know?
Mm-hmm. I definitely have experienced I have experienced being parts of communities where the only place where freedom and emancipation was imagined is in some hereafter. Not, we're not going to be able to get what we need here. It's going to have to be in another world because we're too far gone. I don't think that's the experience of all marginalized groups, for sure, and I know that wasn't your point, but I'm certainly like very familiar with that kind of way, right? Like we're sort of beyond repair, which is why, and just moving a little bit from Eboni Dunbar to Octavia E. Butler, in the parable of the sower and the parable of the talents, her main character, Lauren Oya Olamina, talks about needing to imagine Mars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Our destiny is among the stars, in order to give the character something beyond the lived reality of today. Because if we're she said, she's a pessimist if she's not careful, to give a reality beyond the lived reality they were dealing with, right? And when you're dealing with apocalypse, as Adrienne Marine Brown talks about, and others, sometimes it is very hard to feel like we're going to be able to repair this space. And so we do need to resort to fantasy, the speculative, whether it's, the hereafter or whatever, in order to have hope. Yeah, that's why I love second world fantasy, but my go-to is like mundane speculative fiction with a little bit of magic in it, because I love things that feel so familiar that it allows me to feel like, transformative magic and revolution can also be familiar as well. So yeah, folks are saying, yeah, Samri, great points. References to Hippolyta in Lovecraft Country. Tommy, like, remember, like, when we watched it, I cried. Yeah. Like, I stopped the laptop and I'm like, and then I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm ready. Press play. Like, I cried with that episode. I think the narrative gives hope and sometimes blueprints for freedom and possibilities. Yes. So we're at the 15-minute mark. I'm going to give you the last word, Samri. So go ahead, Chloe. And is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up? And then Samri, you can have the last word. Chloe's good. Samri, any thoughts? Other thoughts?
The thing about monogamy and normalizing other forms of, I guess, being with other people. I thought of the quote, oh my gosh, I forgot. Something about like, upon the chastity of women, all the property in the world depends, or something like that. It's a quote. It's not in a book. It's by some like American president. Oh my gosh, upon the chastity. But it's basically like patriarchy, and how the reason why there's all these like morality about only being with one person, or like having kids in wedlock and all that stuff, is because of money and like the hoarding of resources by men. And it has little to do with morality in actual, like, if you really think about it, it's all about money and power. But anyways, I'm not sure how that connects, but I have weird connections I make. But yeah, so
you'll know when you read the book.
Okay.
Thank you so much for that last word, Samri, and for joining us for the first time. Thanks, Chloe, for being a part of the fam and being here again. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Remember to read with purpose. I don't have my schedule, so I'm not even sure who's on tomorrow. But please join us again tomorrow for Written with Purpose as we continue. Chloe, were you looking it up to see who is tomorrow? Who's tomorrow? Okay, now I have to. We can't end like that. Who is tomorrow? Let me see if I get it first. Oh yes, and while people are looking it up, the giveaway is for a Melanin Eclectic Reading Planner for 2022. If you want to be entered into the giveaway, you need to like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and then answer the reflection question. Thank you, Brittany, for looking it up. And let's just wait so we can talk about who's going to be here tomorrow.
I think it's CL Polk.
Is CL Polk? Okay. So just something to know about the CL Polk interview. It is long. It is almost an hour and 45 minutes. We had a lot to talk about. We got very, very in depth. So just have a blanket, have some hydration, get comfy for that interview. It was amazing. And the story of the Kingston Cycle and Midnight Bargain that we talk about, those stories are amazing. I think the most compelling story is CL Polk's story about writing Black characters. I think that is an incredibly compelling story. So I hope that you'll be able to join us tomorrow. All right, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye.